So as I was saying, you have the ISO program, you have the utility programs, and there's also now emerging within the various states specific programs to, in the case of Massachusetts, a clean peak program to help offset and create a cleaner environment for the state. The state of Connecticut has a program, their storage solutions program, and while all states or utilities will obviously take a battery into a daily dispatch program, the state of Connecticut has a little different nuance to their battery program, in that they actually provide an upfront incentive for that battery to be participating in the market. So there is a performance payment on the back end similar to a daily dispatch, but there is that upfront incentive to bring battery efforts into the state. So again, just sort of a high level of what are the things that CSP providers are looking at when looking and talking to customers. Specifically to the customer, one of the first things that any CSP wants to do is sit down with a customer, sort of understand their habits. How do they operate? Where do they have flexibility? We'll typically bring in the engineering team to also look at how they operate and find the opportunities for them to curtail, to better understand ultimately what the potential is for them if they're able to control certain things. Again, whether it's through BMS controls, if it's through production, load shedding, generators, again in states outside of Massachusetts. How do those things operate? Again, especially in the Connected Solutions program. From there, customers engaged wants to move forward. One of the first things that we do is go in and we'll install a real-time monitoring. That way we can track their performance. So they can see prior to the event where their baseline is, when they actually do get curtailed, what is their performance look like. The other thing that we do is they get ready to ultimately enter into that first season. Again, for the utilities, it's going to be the summer. For ISO New England programs, it's going to be kind of a winter and summer type program. But the first thing we'll do is we'll sit down and have that preparedness conversation with the site. We want to make sure we have all the right site contacts, names, phone numbers, those kind of things, so that when the event gets called, whether it's an ISO New England 30-minute event or a day ahead event with utilities, that when these people see that dispatch notice come, that they're aware of what that means and what their requirements are to be prepared in that case. So we work with the site individuals to be ready for those types of events. And then obviously, as I said, there is the day of notice, a day ahead notice, day of notice. In the case of ISO New England, that 30-minute notice. So again, familiarizing the customer with how we're going to communicate. CSPs are typically going to be reaching out via a phone call, typically a robocall, a text, as well as an email to anybody who's on that dispatch contact, and are looking for some sort of positive feedback that has been received by an individual on site and they are prepared to go. So again, back to that seasonal preparedness, there's a lot that goes to getting that customer ready to go. And then as the event is occurring, again, the customer can follow in the portal and or post event, sit down and have a conversation with the customer, looking at how they perform based on what they thought, especially first-time customers. How did they believe that they were going to participate given the sort of the things that we had laid out for them? And then ultimately, were they able to achieve that goal, or did something get in the way that they didn't expect? And again, especially because the Connected Solutions programs are called as often as they are, there's always an opportunity to try to improve upon. We forgot to do this the last time, but next time we'll make sure we do that. So again, a lot of that, after an event. At the end of every season, then obviously one of the biggest things is the customers wanting to get paid, and that's where Enel and CPower and others will sit down with Paul and the other program administrators. We'll review all the data for all the events, validate that our data and their data match, if there isn't, trying to understand where there's discrepancies between, the utility real-time data and our real-time data. And it does happen where things do not align, and especially with more complicated customers. So we're working backwards through all of those data reviews. We're in that process right now for the summer, getting ready to wrap that up for 2022. But we'll do all that review work with the program administrators, ultimately settle on that data. We will get paid, and then ultimately we will make the payments accordingly out to the customer. So again, that's sort of from, again, CSP perspective. What is the customer going to expect from us? In terms of the customers, as I said earlier, we see a lot of different types of businesses that participate. Obviously, the industrial manufacturing customers, they obviously have a much larger load and an easier capability oftentimes to do a shutdown, either partial or full. Again, in the case of outside of Massachusetts, where they might run a backup generator, curtailing production for a period of time, especially with a day ahead notice. They can set sort of production schedules to be prepared for not incurring as large of a potential loss of materials, knowing that operation is going to be coming to an end. So that day ahead really helps that. On the municipal side, again, a lot of wastewater treatment, water pumping facilities. Those are good opportunities to curtail for a handful of hours, and then be able to bring the plant back up after. Colleges, universities, any institutional, municipal, office properties as well. A lot of that, those customers tend to be driven by their BMS control systems. Again, we can work with CSPs will work from a dispatch perspective, send that signal, and either can control the BMS directly or send the signal to the BMS operator, or even the customer. And often cases, the customer has an easy button. So when they get that notice, they can set the trigger for, again, that 4 or 5 o'clock curtailment. So again, that's typically where customers will find their opportunity to shed load. Oops, sorry, I missed one. As I said, quite a few customers can participate. We do try to look for customers that have a minimum curtailable load. That's probably more important in the ISO New England ADCR program. But again, we do try to have customers that have some level of load. Obviously, there tends to be a lot of work trying to capture real-time data. Metering costs become critical. So the smaller the customer, the more that challenge becomes. As I said again, when we're talking to the customer and we're trying to understand how they operate their business, obviously the conversation is, how quickly could you move in 30 minutes, or and be down for 2 hours, or is a day ahead notice better? And again, we will get customers that don't want to participate in an ISO New England program, but would prefer to participate in the utility connected solutions program. As I said earlier, again, backup generators where they are properly permitted and obviously available to participate outside of Massachusetts. Again, I threw this slide in real quickly simply because it is one of the things that we oftentimes hear from partners, which is, the customer immediately says, well, I can't do that. I can't load shed. And again, once you sit down and start to have the conversation about how they operate and see their load profile, very quickly you may be able to start to see things that say there is an opportunity here to could you replicate what you did at this period of time? And if they say, yeah, we actually could do that, then very quickly you can say, here again is an opportunity to to be able to participate. I threw in just real quick, this would be a typical kind of a customer event notice. I'll make that a little bigger for everybody. So you can see the customer's baseline, you can see their load. They obviously are getting the call on this is a day ahead notice. So at 4 o'clock, they begin to drop their load down to 4 o'clock. Facility is continuing to operate under some fashion, so there is a little bit of bounce off the bottom. But in the end, again, they can physically watch and see how they're performing. throughout an event. Same thing after the fact. This was actually an automated or an animated slide, but unfortunately, it won't be here. But there are then a number of performance reports that the CSPs can provide customers so that they can see, again, from a PDF perspective or log on to the portal, they can see what their performance looked like. They can see the actual numbers and validate that what they did came to fruition. And then ultimately, what does that translate to into a financial, which is certainly important to the customer, is what does that financial impact look like over time? Again, just another example. This is a little more complicated customer who's getting called. They're in the ISO New England market and operating on an economic level. So they're getting triggered a number of different times. So again, just to show, that the customers can be as simple as and sophisticated as to be able to participate in the program. So with that, I will turn it over to Mike from Enel. Again, we'll provide the slides afterwards, so you'll have all of our contact info. So Mike, you want to take it from there?
Sure, thanks, Keith. Do you want to continue to present your screen, or should I try to share my screen?
Oh, you know what? You're right. Let me stop sharing for a second, and you can pick up the slide and go from there.
Okay, let me give this a shot.
Now that we're all in control.
It looks like I'm actually not a host. I'm still just a participant, so it's not allowing me to share my screen.
Okay.
Do you mind? Yes, if you don't mind sharing yours. I can tell you when to advance the slides and stuff. But
okay.
Before you start,
anyway.
I meant to say this at the beginning, but I couldn't get in the meeting. This group of listeners, our audience, usually is not very shy. So guys, if you have questions at all during the meeting, please take yourself off mute or put them in the chat. We're here to answer your questions. So really, you're only doing us a service if you bring us those great questions. All right, take it away, Michael.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, as Keith said, my name is Michael Morrison. I'm a program manager here at Enel X. Enel X is a very similar company as CPower. We're also a curtailment service provider, so do many of the same things as CPower does. So I'm going to kick things off by talking about some other ways you can really monetize demand response. Keith had kind of given a brief overview of the connected solutions utility demand response, but there are two other big ways to really gain value out of demand response participation. The first is with ISO New England demand response. So that is participating in the ISO New England capacity market as a demand response asset. And then the second one I'll touch on is ICAP or cap tag management, and that's really realizing on-bill savings by reducing your facility's peak demand charge. So I'll dive into the ISO New England program next. If you want to go to the next slide, Keith. Yeah, so just taking a step back here, who is ISO New England? What's their purpose? ISO New England stands for the New England Independent System Operator. They're really just responsible for managing the electric grid for the New England states. They serve three main functions. One is coordinating, directing the flow of electricity over the region's high voltage transmission system. The second is market administration, so designing, running, overseeing the markets where participants buy and sell wholesale electricity. And then the third is this power system planning, where they conduct studies, analysis, planning to make sure all of New England's electricity needs are going to be met now and in the future. So the screenshot I have here is just pulled from their website. Honestly, but it does provide sort of a cool snapshot of sort of what their responsibilities are. You can see there on the left is just the snapshot of real-time wholesale electricity prices on the New England electric grid. In the center tab there is just sort of, it's a little bit hard to see, but it shows the New England resource mix. Most of the electricity generation on the grid right now is natural gas, but we have some nuclear, hydro, other renewables generating electricity for the grid. But the most important part relative to us here is the market administration piece. So these wholesale markets that they oversee and that participants can participate in, including as demand response. So if you go to the next slide, cool. So exactly, how does demand response participate in the ISO New England wholesale market? Taking a step back here, you can see On the left of this graphic here, we have this, generating station, whether it be a fossil fuel power plant, coal, nuclear plant, wind or solar farm, whatever it is, generating electricity, putting on these high voltage transmission lines. Electricity gets transported to the distribution system, and then ultimately to these end use customers. Like Keith had mentioned earlier, that could be manufacturing facilities, universities, schools, houses, whatever it is. And so CPower and Enel X as curtailment service providers basically allow customers to participate in these wholesale markets via demand response. So, going back to those generator stations on the left, they are adding electricity on the electric grid, whereas you can participate in these wholesale markets as demand response by actually reducing electricity demand. It sort of adds the same sort of net benefit to the grid. So if you go to the next slide, it can get a little bit complicated, but what does participating in the ISO New England demand response program look like from a customer perspective, from a site perspective? It'll look very similar to the Connected Solutions utility demand response, which Keith had kind of touched on earlier, where you have an energy reduction plan. You're going to get notified of a demand response event from whether it be CPower, Enel X, whoever your curtailment service provider is. Your energy reduction plan is going to be very similar, if not the same, in the ISO New England demand response program as it is in the Connected Solutions program. And the event notifications are going to look very similar. You're going to get emails, texts, whether the demand response event is for Connected Solutions or for ISO New England. So from a site and facility perspective, it is a very similar experience, apart from a few different program nuances. One is the Connected Solutions program is right now is just summer only, so June through September. In those afternoon hours, you get a day ahead dispatch notification for Connected Solutions, whereas in ISO New England, it's a day of notification, typically 30 minutes in ISO New England. So it's a quicker turnaround. The Connected Solutions events typically last about 3 hours. 2 to 8 dispatches per summer, compared to ISO New England, where you're seeing a handful of events over the entire year. It's a 24/7, 365 program. So you have a summer season and a winter season. You're expected to test once per season, once in the summer and once in the winter. And then, there could be a handful of events apart from those tests throughout the year. But I think one of the key things to take away from this is you can earn revenues, and sites participating can earn revenues in both the Connected Solutions program and the ISO New England demand response program. So you can layer them. If you're participating in one, you definitely or most likely have the ability, as long as you can respond within 30 minutes, like ISO New England dispatch, you should be able to participate in the other and really layer those revenues for participating in both programs. Again, no costs or penalties to really participate in these programs. You're paid based on how you perform during different demand response dispatches throughout the season. So you can go to the next slide. Great, yeah, so I just touched on the ISO New England program. Next, I'll dive into ICAP management and how it relates to demand response. So you can keep moving forward. Yeah, so what are ICAP charges? So customers are subject to a monthly charge every single month, based on their electricity demand during ISO New England's peak hour, each year. So, when demand is super high on the grid, if it's a super hot day during the summer, everyone's cranking their AC, demand across the entire electric grid is really, really high. Whatever your facility is using during that specific hour is how this ICAP charge gets calculated. I will just preface this saying not every single customer is subject to this. It's really only applicable if you have this pass-through demand charge for your electricity supply. I would say a lot of customers are subject to this, but if you have a third-party supplier, they should be able to let you know if this is something you're subject to, or you can check a utility bill as well. But there are two main components regarding this cap tag or ICAP charge. One is the actual rate, so the dollar per kW capacity rate, which is determined 3 years in advance of the actual delivery year by ISO New England via a capacity auction. I'm not going to go into the details of that right now, but the rate fluctuates every year. We saw extremely high rates, 3 or 4 years ago. They've slowly come down since then. But I won't go into too much detail there, just because it's kind of outside of a facility's control what that rate actually is that they're going to get charged. The second main component of the ICAP charge is what is the facility's actual electricity usage during that ICAP hour. So it's the charge is going to be based off of your usage at your facility when demand on the ICE New England grid was at its peak for the specific year. So you can go to the next slide. Great. So now we've covered sort of what capacity charges are. How do we actually lower these ICAP charges? It's not too complicated. If a facility is able to reduce their electricity consumption during that peak system hour, then you're going to realize on-bill savings during the following delivery year. So if you're able to reduce your electricity usage during the 2022 ICAP hour, you're going to get bill savings for 2023 based on that reduction. And this relates back to demand response because the Connected Solutions program, those dispatch notifications, almost very frequently overlap with this ICE New England peak hour. So you can see here on the right is a snapshot from the Enel X portal of one customer where on August 4th, 2022, their electricity demand was hovering at about 10 megawatts. A Connected Solutions targeted dispatch event was called for that specific day. And so the customer reduced their usage from 10 megawatts down to about 3 megawatts. And then August 4th at 6 p.m. is the 2022 ICAP hour. It has not technically been finalized yet, but it's looking like it's going to be this hour. So customer is able to reduce their usage from 10 megawatts down to roughly 3 megawatts or so for the ICAP hour. So rather than that capacity charge being based off of that 10 megawatts of usage, it's being based off of that 3 megawatts of usage. So they can realize some pretty significant on-bill savings during for that reduction. You can go to the next slide, Keith. Great. So just wanted to add that the ICAP management column here to the table we were looking at before, just to really show how you can layer the programs here and what are the requirements for each. I'm not going to go over each cell here in detail, but we'll make sure to send these slides over afterwards. You have the Connected Solutions utility demand response and ICE New England demand response, where you're earning revenue for participating in demand response dispatches. And then as another benefit of participating in those demand response dispatches is you're realizing on-bill savings for reducing your ICAP charge for the particular year. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, and this is my last one here. I just want to highlight sort of our footprint in North America. I know we spent a lot of time today talking about New England states and demand response participation in New England, but demand response is not just a New England specific thing. There are demand response programs across all sorts of states and markets all across the U.S. and in North America, even the world. So, to the extent that you all work with facilities or organizations outside New England, there's a high chance that there's a demand response program for any sort of facility located throughout the U.S. So, just wanted to highlight that DR is not just a New England thing. I'm sure CPower is a very similar footprint throughout the U.S. where we're participating in all sorts of different states and markets. There are a lot of, no matter where a facility is located, we can figure out a way for them to potentially participate in demand response. Yeah, that's all I had. Thanks for letting me take up some of your Wednesday evening here, and I think I'll pass it off back to Paul here.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. All right, so this is the recap. So hopefully we've left you guys with an impression that demand response can be done with almost any facility type. In our programs today, we have small department stores, schools, large wastewater treatment plants, bottling companies, and manufacturing, and government buildings, and office, everything really. I dare you to find a building type that can't participate in demand response. Participating does not mean that you have to shut down a facility. Any amount of electric reduction during peak times counts. So this is applicable to you, whether you run a facility or you consult people who run facilities. This is applicable to you. There are many ways to monetize participating in demand response. Connected solutions is one of them. Participating in the wholesale markets is another one. And still another one is the ICAP reductions. And we went through all of those today at a high level. It was a lot, right? And that's why we have two vendors to help you guys out. And the next slide is their contact information. Speaking of those two vendors, both CPower and Enel X were very gracious to donate their time today to present to us. Just to make it an enjoyable presentation, CPower presented some things, Enel X presented other things. However, they are both full shop curtailment service providers. They can both do both. Both do, everything you guys need. Can we go back to the last slide real quick? You might be thinking at this point, well, what's in it for me? Really? Like, yeah, I do consult customers on energy efficiency, but it sounds like that customers should just call up CPower or Enel X or another curtailment service provider. I would humbly disagree. I think there's something in this for everyone in the room or in the many rooms who are listening to this. One is it can help you sell more equipment. If you are a BMS programmer or whatnot, like these are things that need to be programmed. Like you are brought into this. If you have some equipment, a VFD, a chiller, a cooling tower, or whatever, if it uses electricity, you can help make that sell or make that programming or even a consulting thing by bringing up demand response. It is another source of revenue to make that happen. Another key benefit of demand response is it's not a one and done thing, right? A lot of times, you consult a customer or you install a gadget and it's kind of awkward to call them up the next year and be like, hey, you want to buy another one? But demand response leaves that door open. You can call them up and be like, hey, how did your events go? Yeah, maybe we can, go to the next level. Maybe you need another widget. Maybe we can help you with your BMS or SCADA programming to curtail even more to make even more. And third, but not least, CPower, Enel X, and other vendors like this do sometimes provide referral fees. So if you're interested in that, please contact them. That's a kind of more black and white way on how you can monetize participating in demand response programs. All right, that's all I have. So now questions. Please take yourself off mute, ask your questions. I dare you to try to think of a question that our two very knowledgeable speakers can't answer for us.
Hey, Paul,
Go ahead.
this is Dave Chamberlain. I asked a question in the chat, and it looks like you tried to answer it. I just want to clarify your answer. You want me to just ask the question here?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, ask it for everybody.
So, I have a specific interest in Massachusetts, but I'm just curious, like, I'm not familiar with, connected solutions in Connecticut, New Hampshire, other states. Do they all offer both targeted dispatch and daily dispatch?
No, not really. So within Massachusetts, targeted dispatch and daily dispatch are very similar amongst utilities. There are still a couple differences, and we are trying every single season to iron out all those differences and offer the same programs. Dave, I think you hit on one difference for Eversource right now, where they're only allowing thermal storage or battery storage in daily dispatch.
Yep.
Hopefully we can all get on one page on that, rather, the other utilities only offer those or Eversource opens it up, but that hasn't happened quite yet.
How does that process work, Paul? Is it you guys just to get together, the utilities, or is there some intervening, force like DOER or somebody that can help make that happen?
Well, we do get together many times a month to coordinate our programs, especially in the summer times where we get together actually daily to coordinate our programs. Like Eversource definitely hears you. Like I've heard of your concerns from the Eversource team. So you are being heard and they are trying to address it. As a utility person, I don't appreciate escalation beyond that. But if you feel the need, the advisory group for the energy efficiency programs is the EEAC, or Energy Efficiency Advisory council.
Okay, that, maybe I should talk to that group. One of my concerns is it's, advertised as a mass save program.
Mhm.
In my mind, the mass save programs are meant to be uniform across the utility. Am I correct there?
You are correct. We make them as uniform as possible. And sometimes we don't get there in the very beginning, and it takes us a little while to get to uniform. But
I just got to keep pushing. Thanks.
all right, who else?
Hey guys, this is Alex Quintal with QGM Consulting. Great presentation, guys. My question is really more on something recent, gas demand response. I actually got a notification on my smartphone for my thermostat that I could participate in gas demand response. What are your thoughts on that? And do you see that becoming more available in the future?
Yeah, gas demand response is done in specific areas right now. So in National Grid's New York service area, we're doing gas demand response. Also in the former Columbia Gas service area, which is now served by Eversource, they are also doing a demand response demonstration. It is a somewhat limited demonstration right now, just trying to prove out the technology and the benefits. I don't know if we have anybody from the Eversource team online to give you more details than that. Sounds like we don't. But if you send me a question, I can forward you off to the Eversource team if you're in that former Columbia Gas area. Oh, also, Rhode Island Energy is doing a gas demand response pilot.
Does National Grid think they're going to take part in that in the future, or?
It depends on how things go with Eversource. Eversource is kind of leading the way, and if it works out great, we'll be happy to ride the coattails, and if it stinks, we won't.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, who's next? We've got a few more minutes, and this crowd is never shy.
All right, I won't be shy again. This is Dave Chamberlain again from Raytheon Technologies. Battery storage. Are there any limitations with the Connected Solutions program in terms of the size of the battery you can install at a site?
There are thoughts of a limitation. So there's an idea that maybe the size of the battery should be limited dependent on the size of the facility. So for example, if you have a facility with a 1 megawatt peak load during the year, maybe the battery shouldn't be more than 1.5 megawatts. It's not a part of the programs yet. However, something that the program administrators are considering adding to the program. If you have thoughts, ideas on that kind of limit or anything, please send them to me, and I'll make sure that your ideas get to all the program administrators.
One of my concerns is we're thinking about an oversized battery that would provide resiliency for one of our sites.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a limit to the value the battery can derive, and that affects the whole economics.
Absolutely, yeah. I would love to hear more details about that. This is definitely the key time where we need to hear those use cases from everybody involved, so we make the policies that make sense.
Okay.
Yeah, hey Dave, Keith, from a regulatory perspective, this is obviously something that we're having conversations across all the New England states, both with the Connecticut battery program as well as Massachusetts. One of the issues that we're starting to see is people coming in and we've had I'll give you a kind of a bizarre example, but it's an example nonetheless that was shared with me just recently. Was a battery developer shows up in New England and starts citing 5 megawatt batteries on a small facility that maybe is a 25 or 50 kW. And so that battery is simply designed for export, right? And that's not the spirit of the daily dispatch program. And so there are conversations that are going on throughout the New England states to look at this and say what is just and reasonable. And so as a facility looking for peak demand management, for resiliency, those become much easier conversations than the 5 megawatt the 5 megawatt battery sitting next to a gas station, as an example.
Gotcha. Thanks, Keith.
Mm-hmm.
All right. For one or two more questions.
Paul, quick question. What is the ICAP in Boston going to be in the next 3 years, so we can at least have some idea if that adder is worth anything? I mean, I remember it was up like $12, and I have no idea where it is now.
Yeah, I can take that one. I mean, right now it's around $2 or $3 per kW month, which is obviously less than what it was a number of years ago. So it has come down quite a bit. So it is there is still some value in reducing that charge, obviously, if you can, especially if you're already participating in connected solutions. But it is kind of a smaller piece of the supply cost of your bill, combined with just energy prices now are a lot higher than they were even a year ago. So energy is making a larger portion of the bill now compared to the capacity charges. So yeah, kind of two factors there.
Yeah, you're exactly right. A few years ago, gosh, if you go back to 2018, I think of things more like in kilowatt year rather than kilowatt month. It was up to 109 for 2020. For 2023, it's down to 24. But then a year later, it's back up to 47. Luckily, we have a really good idea of what ICAP is going to be, because ISO does run a 3-year ahead market. So we can see at any time what the ICAP value is going to be 3 years ahead. But I totally agree with Michael. It's also great to think of ICAP reduction as like icing on top. If you're participating in target dispatch or daily dispatch, you're going to hit that ICAP hour, almost guaranteed. We've done it every year since 2016. Anyways, so you get paid from the utilities for reducing your peak during that peak hour, and plus a few more, and you can reduce your ICAP. All right, one more question.
Paul, hi, it's Tom Olala from Reading Light. Could you or someone else give us an update on the policy around emergency generators? Say a customer installed a backup generator that was originally permitted for emergency use only, not for economic benefits. And I regularly hear rumors that, oh, the state has loosened those regulations and now you can operate them for a DR program.
So I'll look at that. I'll answer that from the connected solutions lens first, and then hand it off to our speakers for the wholesale market. For connected solutions, generation has been removed from the program, but hasn't been for the wholesale market. So Keith or Michael?
Michael, you want to?
Yeah, sure. You in the ISO market, you can use a backup, fossil fuel powered generator. It does need to have the correct permits. I'm not familiar with exactly what those permits are. I don't know if you are, Keith, but there are some, permitting and emissions permits that you need to pass and get a hold of. So you can still participate with those right permits. We can connect offline if you're still interested. I can get you to the right people who would be able to talk about what those permits are and what you need.
Yeah, both our companies employ really smart engineers to do all those emissions evaluations to make sure that they're permitted. Because you do not want to be operating a generator that is not properly permitted. And if it is emergency only, then that's not a great place to start. Again, especially if you could not operate it in the ISO program.
Well, one related issue there is these backup generators have to be regularly tested, you know, at least once a month is what they recommend, sometimes once a week.
Mhm.
So one of the concepts was, well, if they have to run them anyway, why don't you just operate them as a test during these curtailment hours, and you kill two birds with one stone? Was that ever really allowed?
I'll say it this way: it's not within the spirit of what ISO New England is trying to accomplish, especially if you think about it from an emergency generator perspective, right? It's going to have limited run hours, and so for the ISO program, and Michael hit on it a little bit, is, you know, each season you do have to audit, so that you would get, the ISO New England will call within a 5-day window, so you don't know what particular day or hour, right? But it's within a 5-day window. You're in that window, you'll get called, and you'll be required to curtail for 1 hour as your test, right? So right away, there's 2 hours a year in effect that you'd be running that generator. On top of that, you know, if an event is called, and if you get a couple of events that might get called in a season, you depending on what that run rate is on that, you could eat that up pretty quickly. And again, it's not within the spirit. I don't know the ISO tariff specifically to say, but I have to imagine there is something in there that says, you know, more clearly than I can articulate, that it has to have, you know, some very large number of run hours that are non-emergency. Not to say that somebody wasn't doing it, but it probably shouldn't have been.
So Keith, Michael, if I have a generator backup or standby today, do you have a good rule of thumb? Like, what size generator is it worth calling up one of you guys to see if my generator can participate?
I mean, from CPower's perspective, I know we have we have generators that are really as small as probably 500 kW, and we actually are automatically turning those generators on and off remotely for an event. Most of our generator customers are typically a meg to maybe 5 meg type generators.
Yeah, same with Enel X. I mean, it doesn't. It could be as small as 100 kilowatts if that's what you have. You know, if you're able to participate, then great. But yeah, typically it's at least 500 kW, and most of our customers are a megawatt or 2 megawatts with that generator for the participation.
Awesome, thanks for that. All right, I believe we are at time. Thank you everybody for attending. We'll be sending out the slides later this week. We tried to record this, but we started the recording a little bit late due to some other technical issues. If that recording worked out well, we'll also be sending that one out. If you have any questions about your facility, how you can make this happen for you, please contact Keith or Michael. If you have any questions about connected solutions, any advice on how we might be able to make the program better for everybody, please contact me, and I'll make sure to share your feedback with my colleagues at the other utilities.